This talk is going to focus on more marine science related content, but it's all related to scientific writing and the types of scientific writing that undergraduate students may do. So, I'm going to talk about this mini experiment that I did in my most recent writing course to introduce students to AI and how it can be used in scientific writing. So, the course that I am focusing on today. It's biological oceanography, and it's an upper level writing intensive course. So it's a writing across the curriculum course. And at our institution, the criteria is that at least 15% of the course instruction has to focus on writing, at least 30% of the course grade from writing assignments, and we need a learning outcome based on developing writing skills. And the students at the university have to take a certain number of credits of these writing focus courses. So in spring of 2024, my enrollment in this class was 28. They were mostly junior and seniors, so upper level. It's a major course, so only marine science majors or minors, and it fits as an upper level elective in our oceanography category. So the writing assignments in this class consisted of low stakes, medium, and high stakes. So the low stakes assignments were journal article summaries, where they had to write a summary and reflect on journal articles. Medium stakes were lab reports that they had to do for from data analysis activities that we did in class. There were two of those. And the one that I'm going to focus on for this talk was our high stakes assignment, which was a research proposal, and it was a scaffolded assignment worth 20% of the grade. So in this class overall, I have been experimenting, leaning into using AI in the classroom, both for my purposes and for the students. So in my uses, I've used it to synthesize text and student responses. So when they're reflecting on the journal articles, I can input their reflections and ask ChatGPT to summarize it. I've used it to generate sample responses for exam questions. So we have essay exams, so I can see, sample answers, which then I can use to, generate rubrics. And sometimes they come up with things that I might not have thought of for these questions. And I've tried it for grading, but like the first speaker said, I have not found it particularly helpful or insightful for grading. For students, I have showed them how it can be used for outlining ideas. They can export text from PowerPoint slides, synthesize that text, create study guides. So those are things with the class itself. And I'm going to talk about how I've helped them use it or see its uses assisting with the writing process. So for this assignment, it's this proposal assignment. And it is based on student proposal guidelines from a real undergraduate. I think it doesn't exist anymore, but it's an RFP from the New Jersey Sea Grant. And so the sections for the research proposal, it had to be on any topic related to biological oceanography. It was 8 to 10 pages, minimum of 10 sources. It needed a background, statement of importance, goals and objectives with integrating a hypothesis into that, the project description, which is really the meat of the proposal, how they're going to accomplish their study and the expected outcomes. For the scaffolding elements, there was an outline and annotated bibliography. There was a peer review, so with each other, of sections of the proposal, including the project description. Then they wrote a full draft, which I read and I commented on, and a final draft and revisions. And then as part of their grade, they had a writing journal where they had to keep at least 3 entries documenting their progress and process with the writing. And so it was within this writing journal that I kind of got their thoughts on what they used for AI. In general, this is an intimidating assignment for them. They're used to writing research papers, but really struggle with coming up with an original research idea. So I wanted to see if, using AI could potentially help them with this process. So here are some examples of how I showed them how to use AI. So for the outline and the annotated bibliography, they were shown how to take an idea for a research question and generate an outline for their proposal. The outline also had to incorporate their sources, which GPT can't do that very well. So it had to incorporate some of their own work too. I demonstrated its use in finding sources. For the annotated bibliography, they were warned and shown that it can hallucinate summaries of journal articles. And so they were cautioned not to try this. And even in these summaries, they had to relate it to a particular aspect of the proposal that they were going to include it in. With the writing process, I showed them or encouraged them to maybe try to ChatGPT to help with editing, writing clearly and concisely. So, editing their text, inserting transitional phrasing in their drafts. And a lot of them were struggling with integrating and synthesizing multiple citations. I actually used ChatGPT to come up with a guide for them. And then, so some of these, providing context for the article, not just listing article after article, identifying themes and synthesizing them, some upper level writing skills that they need to use, and transitioning between, this study showed this, however, this study showed this. So here is examples of some of the prompts that I use to demonstrate how they can ask these types of questions developing their research topic. So I had used a specific example from a student who emailed me this question on her topic, and I asked her permission if I could, ask ChatGPT and use this example in class. And so I had actually generated this output before class. I wasn't comfortable just generating output in class in case it came up with something erroneous. So I asked, a question. I want to propose a research study on this topic. What are some ways this can be studied? So it listed a bunch of ways that it could be studied. Then I further went on to narrow it down. Okay, I want to do sediment analysis and sea level rise. How can I study this on timescale? Basically, this question was, she wanted to look at sea level rise, but the experiment could run for up to 10 years. So how can you study something that happens on long time scales? And it didn't really give a great example for that, but it did come up with some specific methods that you could look into that you can employ on these types of timescales. The next step would maybe to generate a hypothesis. So if students were struggling with the hypothesis, here it came up with a hypothesis. However, I was a little suspect that you might be able to observe a shift in these processes over such a small time period. So cautioning the students to think critically about, if their responses make sense, and, make sure that they put it into the correct context. And then asking it to recommend research articles. It couldn't provide direct links, as I think we've talked about, but it gave ideas of keywords. I also was able to get it to generate people and real people that study these types of things to maybe look up their papers. It cannot put citations into articles. I asked it to do that just to kind of see where it would go, and it said it couldn't. Instead, it was directing them to keywords, authors, and databases for searching. So with the type of work I was expecting of the students, I don't think that ChatGPT could have provided a whole researched and cited proposal. Within the writing process itself, I'm going to show some examples of how I took student texts from their rough drafts and I asked AI to strengthen it. I did not actually show them this in class, but these were areas of the text when I was reading them that I made comments on them to revise. So if the output I felt was good, I would maybe suggest it. So here are just some examples. So these examples, making it sound more formal or professional. So the input, the student sentence, even with all the research done, there are still holes in the knowledge of how effective oysters are at filtration and what drives that effectiveness. The output was, despite extensive research, significant gaps remain in our understanding of the efficacy of oysters in filtration and the factors influencing this effectiveness. So I feel like that might have strengthened it and made it sound a little more formal in that context. Another example here, some specific goals that I have are to investigate the possible effects of climate change on their prey. I've highlighted this because this is a common thing that I see students do, where they use these non-specific pronouns or articles like they, them. It's not clear to what they're referring to see if ChatGPT can smooth this over. And so it does, removes the eyes. Specific objectives include this on the prey species of sea lions. So now it's clear that it's sea lions, as might be implied here. So it makes it a little more clearer and more professional sounding. Here are some kind of muddy, jumbled sentences I asked it to revise for clarity. So in this case, there was a few of these articles again that were not very specific. So in the revised sentence, the they is not clarified. And I also felt like maybe these processes that are mentioned could be clarified, but it is made a little more clearer and concise as you read it. It broke up the content into 2 sentences. Um, and here's another one. That I found to be kind of confusing. Previous studies have shown that zooplankton, commonly observed to be food sources for North Atlantic right whales, are found in lesser abundance in historically warmer years. So it kind of made the zooplankton, related them to right whales a little bit better, and made it sound a little bit more clear and less clunky in that case. A third use is generating a topic sentence. I don't have the whole paragraph here, but using the input was a paragraph from a project description that listed many analysis methods. It came out with this output topic sentence, which I felt like was very generic. And this comprehensive assessment was wording that I had seen kind of appear a lot in some of these outputs and what the students use. So that sort of became something that I saw in a lot of proposals. Everyone was doing a comprehensive assessment, whether or not it was really a comprehensive assessment. So in this case, a revised output that included more specifics that I made based on what the student had included might have been a better choice for a topic sentence. But at least it put something in there. So I'd asked the students to disclose and reflect on their use of AI in their final writing submission. And so out of the 23 responding, and this is similar to what other people have reported, 70% said that they had used some form of AI with outlining or generating text, because I kind of introduced them to doing it. 3% only used Grammarly to edit their text, and 17% did not use any AI. And so here are some of the student responses. So this was one that they used. I use it to reword certain phrases to sound professional, finding ways to say certain words, help using it to fix grammar errors and things like that. This one I thought was funny. They said they did not use AI to enhance their writing. However, they did use it for some parts, and they used it to edit grammar errors. So they did use it. Maybe they didn't understand what my prompt was saying. And then this one represents those that did not use AI and that feeling. So I feel it might have helped me organize my thoughts, but I've never used AI for an assignment, and I wanted to be responsible for my own work. So this was kind of the hesitancy for using it that we've seen in students as well. So I asked AI to summarize the feedback summary. So this was the summary that I generated on using ChatGPT. So generally, they're using it for outlining and organizing, making writing more manageable, using it to rephrase and make their sentences sound more clear, or for grammar. Specific uses. So this was new to me, that they were using AI to explain complex topics and terms from the references, which we know could be good or bad depending on the content. Using it to clarify confusing revision comments, either from myself or their peers, ensuring the accuracy of their content. So that's a little suspect too. Caution, that most of them said they preferred to use it sparingly to maintain authenticity, using it to inspire their writing rather than to copy from. So the students overall had mixed feelings. Some, they didn't want to rely on it too much, but they did feel like it did help them save time and effort overcoming writer's block and things like that. I had a few specific examples of what I saw, so how I was detecting AI. I'm just going to go through these real quickly. So this was a student that was trying to synthesize information, and I told her to use AI to, instead of listing her references, synthesizing them a little bit more. So I think it did help, but there were still some things that I found that was kind of confusing, may have come from AI that weren't explained, like the relationship was not made clear. This was a big chunk of AI that was put in. Instead of talking about what they were going to be doing in their project description, they just gave a lot of smart sounding, non-specific information about the benefits of the study. And it wasn't clear what was actually being carried out. So in this case, I don't think this was a good choice for the student to have used this, and didn't get full points for this part. In this case, a student was struggling with her outcomes. I told her to use AI. She had a very specific assessment, but in some of the AI, I felt like it could have been a little more specific about what exactly you might expect. And the AI only said valuable insights. It didn't actually go back to that hypothesis that she had had of the different sites. Um, so overall, some concerning uses. Maybe I see a lot of non-specific phrases in some of the students' use, like these comprehensive assessments, dynamic changes. This one, their study laid the groundwork for broader investigations into the implications of environmental changes on marine species dynamics. Sounds really smart. I'm sure that's why they put it there, but it doesn't really say anything specific. All of the studies could have potentially done this. Although I know it's sometimes important to sell your work when you're doing proposals. I felt like it could potentially impede their ability to develop fundamental scientific writing skills on their own if they're just relying on this phrasing and this wording. And I do, sometimes feel like it could limit I'm supposed to be the one that's helping them too. It saves me some time. I'm not an expert in all of their topics, but I don't want it to be an excuse to not see me or to not see the writing center or something like that. So finally, my plan is to continue using this, showing them appropriate and concerning uses. Next year, I might implement an AI workshop where the students are going to, be allowed to use ChatGPT to edit their own drafts and edit the content. And maybe as I learned from today, maybe have students fully document where AI is being used in the paper. Those examples were what I had suspected, but it wasn't clear in the papers what was being used. And then this link here I felt was helpful in when I was creating this talk on how to develop AI in writing. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Christine. This is fascinating. I think we have a couple minutes for Q&A. I don't know if Nilan is able to unmute herself, but if she does, please.
I'm good. I'm able to unmute now.
Okay, so let's just have a couple of minutes Q&A for Christine. So while we wait for other people to type in their questions, I have a question. So exactly like you mentioned in your previous slide, like your students are worried like if they over rely on AI, that may block them from developing scientific writing skills. Because I personally, I know quite a few journalists. They told me like when they first start writing, it took a long time, right? Then because they write every day, then they can just finish articles in just a couple of hours. They can write 7, 8 articles per day. So is this a concern that you have on scientific writing? Because if students mostly rely on AI to do the writing, then they may not be able to write independently with like, good proficiency.
Yeah. I mean, that was really something that is new to me and thinking about. And, that I'm seeing these overused phrases a lot. And do they really understand what they're saying? And, how can I maybe have them develop their own sense of scientific writing instead of relying on these things that maybe they think sound really good but don't really make a lot of sense. So in this workshop, hopefully helping them do this. They do write a lot of these article summaries in my class and stuff, trying to hone on their skills. So I do see it in some areas being a concern, but I think as long as we emphasize the basic skills that they can start seeing the content but creating it on their own too is important.
So I have we see a question in the chat from Teresa Lee. I love the idea of using AI to make the leap to synthesizing into across multiple citations. How could we help students see the steps of this process? Maybe reflect on what's strong about AI's response.
Yeah. So when I mentioned that, this was something that one of the students pointed out, like in one of the journals, I asked them to tell me what they needed more help on. And so this was something I leaned into. They wanted help with the multiple citation thing. And so I used AI to come up with some ways to do this. And even though the citations in the thing were fake, it actually came out with, I gave them a handout to kind of help them with that. So, I mean, I could share that AI generated handout. Um, with people. If you email me, I can send it to you. But actually, I used AI to kind of come up with these guidelines, and I edited it a little bit too, to kind of see the steps of the process. So kind of taking one citation, another citation, comparing them, contrasting them, putting multiple citations together in brackets and things like that.